Welcome back to the Become Limitless podcast. This week, I want to cover living longer. And not just living longer, living healthier. Now, in a previous episode, we've gone over the hallmarks of aging and what those hallmarks mean. And then I gave you a little couple tips and tricks advice on how to live longer or to start to utilize the information we got from the hallmarks of aging and how we can actually get better, actually live longer and live healthier. So this episode is going to be a two-parter, how to live longer. What I'll do is I'm going to dive deep into the things we can do and what and why they work, why that stuff happens, why does when we eat less, these longevity genes activate. Why is it when we eat certain foods or not eat certain foods? Why do we live long? What's the purpose? Why does that happen? Why does our body do that? So it's really important that we understand the whys, because of course the awareness that we get, the more awareness, the more power. The more power we have over something, the more control, and obviously that follows through and we'll be able to really implement some of these changes into our day-to-day lives. So is it possible to live a healthier and longer life? And I look at it as even if it doesn't extend my life at all substantially, these things that I'm implementing myself, if I live 5-10 years healthier, well then that's worth it, because the healthier you are, the better you feel, the better you are living, the more you are actually living. And if any of these strategies or tactics or things we can implement into our lives actually work, then it's worth it to live better, to live with a better health span, they call it now these days. So imagine that you're getting older and say you're 50, 60, 70 years of age, and now because you've been following all these strategies, that you don't have to live like a 60, 70-year-old as you would imagine it right now. You're living like a person that's 40 or even my age, 30. And you've got the same energy, the same strength, the same vigor to go and do things in your 60s and 70s. That doesn't sound so bad, because I talk to a lot of people about extending life. And they're like, oh, no way. And I believe that they get the idea of living longer looks so nasty, because when we get older, we get sicker, we get more diseases, and that's what has been the case so far. You watch someone get older, they get more and more diseases until it eventually takes them, like their body just gets too much and it overcomes their body. Cancers, Alzheimer's, you name it, whatever disease it is, the older you get, obviously the greater the chances of getting diseases is. Now, what if that wasn't the case? What if we can stop that aging process inside? We might be chronologically older, but biologically we might be still a 34-year-old. So that's the kind of science that they're looking at now. What we can do is start to understand that science. And I'm going to first get straight into what's the best thing we can do for ourselves. And I did mention it in that little Instagram, Facebook post, and that's eating less. Also mentioned it in the earlier episode on the hallmarks of aging. Go check it out if you haven't. Eat less. If you eat less, you will live longer and healthier. Now, why is that the case? Let's dive into why fasting or eating less, caloric restriction, works. Now, the beauty of fasting is it's cheaper than eating normally. That's just all I can put it down to. You don't have to eat any special diet. You're not doing anything special. You just got to stop eating as much. Now, for myself, I eat from 8 till around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. I'm trying to bring that down as much as possible. And it's funny because I'm trying to still do my exercise. Like, I'm trying to do 100 burpees a day. I'm implementing 50 pull-ups a day as well. And I wanted to really see, okay, if I start to do these things, like I'm doing a vegetarian diet, I don't eat meat anymore, also doing this fasting, so I don't eat as often, will I lose any performance? Will I lose any results, gains from doing these exercises? Obviously, there's only very limited so results you're going to get from doing body weight. You're not lifting heavy weights and trying to build massive muscle as well. But was there going to get any downside to fasting in that regard? And I haven't noticed any. I've felt better. I'm leaner than I was. I'm currently working towards that goal of losing that weight to where I want to go. I can't remember the goal right now off the top of my head. I will look at that, but I'm currently losing weight from doing this, but I feel really good. There's a difference between not eating enough and getting malnutrition, and that's the really important. And I believe it's called IFAN now. It's intermittent fasting with adequate nutrition, and that's very, very important that we get the nutrition part right. When I do eat between 8 and 3 or 4, I eat really good fruits, veggies. I get greens powder into me with my smoothies, with a lot more proteins and things like that, just to boost my body, to make sure I've got the recovery I need from my exercise. I've got the nutrients I need for my body as well. And I feel amazing doing these things. So fasting, first thing you should do is start to restrict when you eat. Just that window. You could do a 24-hour, 48-hour fast and then eat normal for 3 or 4 or 5 days. Or you could go a week fast every quarter. So there's so many different ways of doing fast. You can check them out on the internet. And make sure you're doing it safely. Make sure if you do have any concerns, go talk to your doctor about it. Okay? So what actually happens when you fast is you get a lower state of energy. And your body knows this by less glucose available in the bloodstream. That's how it knows it. So you're eating food, and obviously you'll get glucose from the foods you're eating. Now, when you do that, it triggers these genetic pathways what I've been talking about. And these genetic pathways are sirtuins. So there's 7 of those in the human body. And they start to get activated when you go into low energy. Now, I'm going to be reading off my notes because I don't want to get anything incorrect here, because it is quite amazing science that they've been looking into. Now, why these sirtuins get activated, why Ampks get activated, and why Mtor gets downregulated is because of this low energy. So Mtor needs amino acids. So obviously eating less meat will downregulate that when you're fasting. Ampk and sirtuins need NAD, which is a molecule that they use for energy. Now, when you go into a low energy state, NAD gets boosted, and the more boosted the NAD is, obviously the more food that these genes have to obviously do their work, and obviously their production and their work gets boosted. And sirtuins, if you didn't listen to the last episode, sirtuins help the cells stay what they are, repair cells. They help repair that epigenome scratching that we talked about that creates aging, that loss of information. It allows it to stay solid, stay regular. It allows that cell to know that it's that cell. That's what the sirtuins do. So obviously they take care of that DNA as well. I forgot to mention that just then. That's why I'm looking at my notes. Sirtuins take care of DNA repair as well, and they protect the DNA as well. So it's really important that we have a lot of this, or make sure we got plenty of this NAD to keep those sirtuins active. So they keep doing these things to protect ourselves, to protect the DNA that we've got, and repair the DNA that has been damaged, and also that we don't lose them. They go back to where they were supposed to go, because there's lots of information is the sirtuins going out doing something, and they're not coming back to where they're supposed to be, protecting the cell and doing the DNA repair. Doing the things that they're supposed to do. Yes, so the obviously low energy activates NAD, NAD then feeds the sirtuins. The sirtuins, they get upregulated, and they start doing this DNA repair, DNA obviously blockade, or protecting the DNA, and then they also do so many other amazing things for your cells in helping them repair, helping them do so many different things. That's what sirtuins do. Now, I mentioned Mtor and Ampk, and these are the three buckets, they call them, of genes that are longevity genes so far that they can see. And let's get straight into Mtor. Mtor is something that really allows you to build muscle. So if you're a bodybuilder, Mtor is very important for you to have regulated or upregulated. Not so good when it comes to longevity, but you'll notice that even in dogs, the bigger the dog, the shorter they live. The same goes for people as well, in a general sense. The bigger the person is, the less they live. The smaller the person is, the longer they live as well. So for myself, being a smaller person, I'm quite lucky. But yeah, there's that to a certain degree. There's about 20% of your genes in that regard dictate how long you're going to live. The other 80% is still up to you, so you can still dictate what you want to do and how you want to live your life to obviously extend that health span, extend that lifespan as well. So, but Mtor helps regulate building muscle, so it senses amino acids. That's what it is. It's a sensor. So it senses amino acids in your bloodstream. It gets that information, goes, oh, we've got lots of amino acids. Let's build some big muscles. Let's build this body. As I said before, that's awesome if you want to build muscle, but not so good if you're for longevity. We want to be down-regulating Mtor, Mtor. So we want to lower that Mtor as well, because reducing this allows you to go into a state of autophagy. And this is the first time I've ever heard this, autophagy. And it's the body's ability to recycle old proteins. And it does. It recycles. So you've got old proteins sitting in your brain, everywhere in your body. Autophagy takes those old proteins, recycles them into something they can use. Pretty much into the new proteins, like brand new proteins that you can use in your body regularly to build muscle and do all those things. This is very important. Why? Well, Alzheimer's is literally a buildup of proteins in your brain that start to create problems, obviously, because buildups is never a good thing. When we fast, it downregulates at Mtor, and obviously then activates this autophagy in our system. And I was always wondering, I'm eating less, I'm exercising, I'm doing pretty heavy body weights, I'm doing a fair few burpees and a fair few chin-ups. Why am I not really feeling those effects of not eating enough food? Like, I'm not eating that much protein, obviously because I've had that vegetarian diet. Why is that the case? Because my body is doing autophagy. It's recycling all the proteins that are just left there, the old proteins that are sitting in the body that could be doing damage. Might not be right now, but will be in the future, start to do damage. So I'm letting this process of autophagy start to recycle these proteins and use those in my body. It's amazing. This body of ours is amazing. So it's really important to understand that autophagy goes on and allows you to recycle your old protein. And it's a very important process that we need to let happen. That's another reason why we should be fasting. Now let's get into the last bucket of genes that we're going to talk about is Ampk. Now, when Ampk is upregulated, and again it senses low energy levels in the body, again low glucoses in the body, it creates more mitochondria. Now, why is that good? If you've never heard of mitochondria, they're pretty much the powerhouses of the cells. And the more powerhouses you have, obviously the more mitochondria, the more energy you're going to have, the more power you're going to have. Now, they help you metabolize. They help you create more energy. So it's really important. And it's one of the things that happen when you get older is you start to drop the amount of mitochondria you have. So obviously your Ampk production or upregulation of these AMPK genes. I shouldn't say production, because AMPK is a gene. They're upregulated or downregulated. Well, upregulated it is. Also, it must be more downregulated when you get older, because you get less mitochondrial function, you get less mitochondrial production. Now, it's really important that we understand that by doing these things, by eating less food, that's it. That's all we're done. And we've activated and done all the amazing things for each of these 3 buckets of longevity genes. So what else can we do? So if we go fasting, what else can we do when it comes to foods? Because this is what this one's going to be about, just foods. And I didn't mention it at the start of this episode, but foods and eating, and what to eat and when to eat. Let's have a look at what we can start to eat less of. Avoid excess sugar, because as I said before, glucose spikes obviously downregulate and upregulate the wrong ones. Upregulate or downregulate longevity genes that you want to be in your corner, want to be activated, want to be upregulated. Drop your meat. It's easy as that. You don't have to cut meat out completely. I'm not going to say that to you. I know it's not going to be a popular thing to say as well. But drop your meat. Drop your branched chain amino acids. There's 3 of them that are in specific. Like, to be specific, there's 3 of them that are really do activate that Mtor. So we want to be staying away from those. They're the ones that the bodybuilders really want, and the ones that, if you're not bodybuilding or not exercising hard, or your goal is longevity, and again, this is all to do with what you want. If your goal is to live a healthier, longer lifespan, then you will start to stay away from these things. Remember, your body does have that autophagy, so don't stress that you're not getting enough protein as well, because it will recycle the old proteins. So we want to stay away from super high proteins in anything, like that, supplements as well. We don't want to go really high proteins, because it'll upregulate that Mtor. We also want to be looking for aged fruits and veggies that have been under the weather, had less water, hot, cold. They've been in that adversity like we talk about for longevity, because it's called xenohomesis. And it seems that these fruits that you have, and this is only really relatively new, so just bear with me here. It's shown that those molecules that are good for you, because you've been in adversity, also you can get from fruits and veggies that have been in that adversity as well. So eating the nicest, most perfect fruit isn't necessarily the healthiest way to eat fruit. So it's important that we actually look for damaged fruit. We look for some fruit that's had a little bit of adversity, less water, been cold, been hot, all those things, because it's going to be healthier for us, because it's going to have those lovely little molecules that it's developed for itself, to protect itself, that we can then ingest and then have a certain uplift and benefit to us. Mediterranean diets for longevity it's been long proven. Like, you look at the places where people live the longest, and Mediterranean diets seem to be a very popular side of things. And then obviously, for your knowledge, what a Mediterranean diet is, it's typically fruits, veggies, whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, and heart healthy fats. Okay? And another thing you want to do is, this will keep your glucose constant. You don't want to spike it. Even if you're fasting, you spike your glucose. You don't want that to happen. And you can also negate that glucose spike by exercising just before, or do a little bit of exercise before. So I heard that you can go do 30 squats real quickly in the bathroom before you eat dinner. If you're going to have a meal that's not necessarily good, like in glucose wise, it's going to spike your glucose. Do some squats. That'll stimulate your body to start doing all the lovely things that exercise does, and it'll curb that spike. You won't get as a greater spike, because it's the spike of glucose that the body recognizes downregulates the longevity genes that you don't want downregulated. So those things will be able to help you excuse me, really live the longest. So that's the easiest thing I can say. Like, fasting, that's why fasting's amazing. Just to cap it all off for this episode, fast. Eat less food. You'll feel better, trust me, and you'll be much healthier. Eat less meat, eat less sugar. You can cut sugar out. Try and cut sugar out as much as possible. But eat less of that. Eat less sugar, eat less meat. So we're eating less, eat less sugar and meat. Obviously, this one, sugar, we don't want to spike that glucose, as I just mentioned then. Meat, we don't want to activate that Mtor, because that's, as much as it's amazing for building muscles and things like that, unless that's what you want to do, unless that's your goal. Longevity wise, you don't want to activate your Mtor. Go towards a Mediterranean diet, because it avoids those excess sugars, refined sugars and things like that. It is lower on meat. You can be having fish and things like that, which is a healthy fats. There's so many great things out of fishes and things like that. But it's around that really less processed food as well. It's whole foods as well, Mediterranean diet. There's so many different things out there. And I do want to mention that I've been listening to a podcast that pretty much covers exactly this stuff, but for an hour. It goes for an hour. And it's the Lifespan podcast. Not Lifestand, Lifespan podcast. And go check that out. I will put a link in my YouTube description and the podcast description as well, on Anchor. Go check that out, because that's going to go into way more detail than I have here. I've just tried to summarize as much best as possible so you guys have an understanding of what's going on. And I also wanted to just give you these little things you can start to do now, and you can really see for yourself, because obviously we're all individuals, and well, what works for me might not work for you. So I cut meat out, no worries at all. It doesn't affect me. But for my partner, she can't cut meat out. My lovely wife, she just can't. For the life of her, she can't cut meat out. So I said, just reduce the amount of meat you have. And she's like, well, I don't want to do that either, because I want to build muscle. And that's fair enough. She wants to build muscle. That's what her plan is. That's what her goals are. Let her build muscle. She wants to eat lots of meat. So those are the things. You remember, you're an individual. What are your goals when you're doing these things? And again, go check out that Lifespan podcast. It's in the link in the description below. Until next time, stay limitless.